Now joining us in studio, I always love in-studio guests, Ian Burma. He is the author of Taming the Gods, Religion and Democracy on Three Continents. Ian, welcome. All right, now give us a real pronunciation of your last name.
It sounds almost Turkish. Buruma.
Buruma. Okay, that's badass. What nationality is that?
Dutch.
Oh, that is Dutch. Okay. All right. Now, talk to me about Taming the Gods. What's in the book?
Well, it's about the question whether you can whether religion is a hindrance or a help to liberal democracy.
I have an answer.
Okay.
Okay. The answer is a hindrance. Unquestionably, inarguably. Okay, next.
I'm not so sure, though. I think it can be a hindrance, but I think the history of the United States has shown that it doesn't have to be. And
I would argue with that as well.
Well, but one of the people in the book who is kind of my guide through these things was the 18th century French aristocrat Tocqueville. Mm-hmm. And he observed, and I think he had a real point, that Christianity in America, and I'm not speaking as a Christian myself, but was actually a help in setting up free institutions because it gave people a kind of moral bedrock, and in order for them to be politically free, as long as you separate church authority from state authority.
You know, Ian, I don't understand that argument. Maybe I'm dense, it's happened before, but what does that mean? Because we know, historically speaking, the founders were not religious in the traditional sense that we think of it today. A lot of them were deists, etc., right? So, and America was the first country to separate church and state, the first one in the history of the world. So it kind of turns the argument or facts on its head to say, oh, religion helped America. They seemed like the founding fathers were running away from religion at 100 miles an hour. So what does religion have to do with any of this?
Well, the founding fathers were not particularly religious, as you say, but most people in America at the time were. Right. Now, I don't want to take this argument too far. I mean, I don't think it's an essential component of democracy, but I don't think it has to be in the way, as long as you separate church from state, or religious from state, or secular authority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not buying it, but that's okay. No problem. Now, but in the book, you talk about not just that side of the equation, but the other side of the equation as well. I mean, there's three different parts of the book. So what's the, if it's clear enough, what's the other side of the equation?
Meaning where it can be a help, or what do you mean?
No, where do people go too far in removing religion from
I see what you mean.
From government?
Well, I think it should be removed from government. I don't think it should be part of government. But I think there are examples of zealous secularization which caused violent reactions. Mm-hmm. I suppose Turkey might be an example of this, but certainly Iran under Reza Shah, where people were forced to discard headscarves and forced to shave beards and so on. And then if you set up a kind of secular dictatorship, a police state, which most of the Middle East is, and people think the Middle East is run by Islamists, of course, it's far from the truth. It's run by mostly secular police states. Then you get a religious-based reaction, which can be equally violent. And so I think, you know, there should be room for religion as long as it doesn't interfere with secular government.
So you think the Swiss and the French are going in the wrong direction, the Swiss with the banning of the minarets and the French with the banning of the burqas, etc., because all that's going to do is stoke more of a religious reaction?
Yes, I think in the case of the burqa, it's particularly misguided because, A, there are very, very few people who actually wear full veil burqas in France. But if the idea is to integrate Muslims as much as possible in Western society, you need them to leave their homes and get out in the open. If you ban the burqa in public, then you make sure those people, whether they're converts or immigrants or children of immigrants, that you make sure that these women never leave home, which is much worse, I would say.
Yeah, no, I on this topic, we 100% agree. Because if you believe in freedom, it's not just a matter of it's a bad idea on the results, which I agree with you, I think it is, right? For a number of reasons, not just because then they can't leave the house, but it leaves the religious fundamentalists with a sense of martyrdom and victimhood, etc., and it only encourages people, right? But outside of that, on a political level, if you believe in freedom, then you should be strong enough to be able to advocate for your position without banning anything.
Well, I believe so, but actually Turkey is perhaps the most interesting battleground for this idea at the moment, because, as I'm sure you know, there's a real debate over whether to allow young women who are veiled, not burqas, but with headscarves, to study at public universities. Now, there are secular laws in Turkey, and there are laws that say that this is forbidden, just as in France. But the result is that young women from villages don't get to go to universities, and it's surely much better for society at large that those people study in big cities and bring the secular and the religious communities closer together.
Now, I get the original reason behind it, because when Ataturk came in, at the time, the Ottoman Empire was the head of the caliphate, the whole Muslim caliphate. And so these were so deeply entrenched that he had to rip the root out, okay? And so I understand why he did it. But I agree with you. I think it is, at this juncture, totally counterproductive.
Well, Turkey and France, of course, have a similar history, because in France it was also to take the root out of the enormous power of the Catholic Church, which again is absolutely understandable. It's partly what the revolution was about. But you know, the young women in headscarves are hardly posing the same threat that the Catholic Church did to liberty in the 18th century.
And look at what's happened in Turkey since, you know, that movement got bottled up, and that idea of victimhood rose up higher and higher. Now you have a fairly fundamentalist government that is obviously Muslim, and much more so Muslim than any other Turkish government since 1923. They've got power, and they continue to build on their power. It always backfires. So, having said that, and I'm a die-hard secular, but I think part of being a die-hard secular is the second part of that clause in the First Amendment, which is freedom of religion. You get to have freedom of religion no matter how much I disagree with you. Because my ideas aren't necessarily better than your ideas, and that's what the free market is about.
Except the problem, of course, is, or the fear, is that if religious people get too much political power, they'll start to impose their laws based on religious beliefs on everybody, whether you believe or not. And that, of course, has to be avoided. And the law has to be a secular enterprise.
Well, that's when I come for them. Okay, you know, the right wing loves to talk about the culture wars, except there's nobody on the left wing who does culture wars, except me. Okay, I will come for them. And so, no, you don't get to impose your religion on us. And that goes towards my final point, which is, after all this time, the first guys who did it, the founding fathers in America, with the revolution in 1776, they had it just about exactly right, didn't they?
I think so. And which is why I think we should act in their spirit and not pretend that actually they were very religious, and America is really a deeply Christian polity and so on. I mean, it's a big mistake what they're trying to put into textbooks in Texas at the moment.
Yeah, the problem is, to round all this up, is that the religious side doesn't believe in facts. That's where you run into a huge issue. And I would argue that the seculars should not make the same mistake of being fundamentalists like they are, right? We have to fight facts. We have to fight with facts. We have to fight with the things that are at our disposal. Like when they'll turn around and they say no. American founding fathers were deeply religious, and they set this up as a Christian nation.
Which is a myth. I mean, a very good friend of mine, an Israeli philosopher called Avishai Margalit, made the distinction between religious politics and economic politics. And by religious politics, he didn't mean the politics of a particular faith. He meant a theological view of politics, which promises an ideal society, which has an absolute truth, and so on, and which can't compromise. And economic politics is about interests, and you can wheel and you can deal and you can make compromises and so on. And you can't really conduct a democracy with religious politics. And some atheists can be as zealous as the religious people they oppose. I think that was your point.
So part of my point, certainly. But of course, me being an agnostic, I lean more towards the atheist side. And
me too, personally. But,
right.
But I don't want to impose that view
no.
on anybody either.
And the one thing I am fundamentalist on is being secular. Okay, and that doesn't mean atheism or agnosticism is the way to go. It means we have a real free marketplace of ideas, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and no intermingling of church and state. That's part of what the book's about. It's called Taming the Gods, Religion and Democracy on the Three Continents, as examples from all over the world. So, Ian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.